All right, peeps. So, you've heard me talk about this before with covert narcissistic abuse, or covert, in particular covert abuse, basically. And one of the things that I feel like it really impacts, that I've noticed over time in my own life, is that it slowly disconnects you from yourself. So it slowly disconnects you from your own intuition. It slowly disconnects you from your own inner guidance. It slowly disconnects you from your own feelings. It slowly disconnects you from your own perceptions, your own values, your own beliefs, what you even, agree to be true. It can be very, very detrimental in that way, in that, it's insidious, because as long as you have yourself, you can find a way back to baseline or stabilization. But that's what's so insidious and sick about covert abuse, is that it's not as easy to find your way back to that because it's so subtle. So with overt, abusive people, or overt narcissistically abusive people, it's a bit easier to tell because they're very direct. But with covert abuse, it's very subtle, and it's very passive aggressive, and it's very much so planting seeds, little seeds of doubt over time, by guilting you, making you feel fearful, and making you feel obligated to them. Guilt, fear, and obligation are big ones that these individuals use, or manipulative people use. And so the reason it's so damaging is that, because if you think about it, if you get disconnected from yourself, your values, your own beliefs, your perceptions, what you want, what you like, what you don't like, whatever, you can't really function at full capacity. And if you're disconnected from self and don't trust yourself, that makes life a whole lot harder to navigate. And then you become dependent upon the reality of this covert narcissistic person, essentially. Signs that you're being covertly abused, or dealing with somebody who's a covert narcissistic, or, covert abuser, or covert manipulator, is, you'll find that over time you become increasingly more irritable, just like kind of all the time. Irritable, mad, angry, and you won't understand why. You know what I mean? Like, that's the other thing about the covert abusers, is that you'll feel irritated, you'll feel angry, you'll feel, triggered a lot, and you won't be able to pinpoint the source. And that's because they utilize very subtle tactics to make it seem suggestive, as if you're just thinking this way, or you're just feeling this way, or you're just believing this. You know what I mean? That's why it's so fucking detrimental and damaging, because you don't even know it's fucking happening to you. And that is why I would take an overt narcissist every motherfucking day, and then some, before a covert, because an overt narcissist will let you know exactly who the fuck they are, and what they think, how they feel. That's why people, maybe, I don't know, they're less of a threat, I will put it that way. And covert narcissistic people are harder to spot, and it can sometimes take years, decades, to spot these individuals, because they kind of feign a fake sense of innocence. And these are individuals that might even like fake a sense of like empathy about situations as well, potentially. Not always. Sometimes, sometimes they get triggered or whatever, and then their mask drops and you can tell. But That's why it's such a big problem, because you don't realize it's happening to you. And by the time you realize it's happening to you, lives have been lost. Or, like, okay, maybe that's dramatic, but seriously, like by the time you realize it's been happening to you or happened to you, a lot of damage can incur as a result of it without you knowing. Because again, you're being brainwashed, and the subconscious it's kind of a perfect nightmare setup for that, because the subconscious takes to, affirmations or subtle things that it's told. And so that's where we can get disconnected from our intuition and think that, we're making decisions based on that, when really it's, repressed and suppressed, or like internalized rather, thoughts, beliefs, feelings from the covert abuser or system. So it's dangerous and it's scary, because it's not the same like with an overtly narcissistic person or overt abusive person, where you can just be like, yeah, this person's they're clearly an asshole, and it's like, it's a little bit easier to spot and to set boundaries where needed. Quote unquote vulnerable narcissists, as they call them, they can present themselves as being damsels in distress, or, oh my gosh, I just need help. They're very needy, very, very needy. And what disguises itself as neediness, or, oh, I just need help or whatever, is actually a manipulative ploy. It's actually their way of playing the victim, so that they can keep you attached to them, so that they can keep fucking with you and manipulating your energy, and etc. etc. So I don't even know. That's the most damaging part, because you think of that book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, or whatever the fuck that guy's name is, and it's like, know thy enemy and know thyself. If you don't know thyself, meaning the covert narcissist separates you from your intuition, separates you from your inner guidance, separates you from what your original, actual, authentic beliefs, values, etc. are. Where was I going with that? It makes it very hard to, over time, recognize. Like, it's kind of like, if you're with somebody who's more overt, over time, it kind of gets easier and easier to recognize. But like when you're around somebody who's more covert and insidious, and I would even argue sometimes like female covert narcissists can be even more tricky, because it's like, I think feminine energies can more easily make themselves look or seem vulnerable, and I don't know how to explain it, but they can manipulate that a lot easier, I think. So that's why it's damaging, because if you're disconnected from yourself, if you don't know yourself, there's not a whole lot of places you can go with that, because you're stuck. You're stuck on, what the covert narcissistic abuse does is it gets you stuck on, am I a bad person? What's wrong with me? Am I doing something wrong? I'm confused. What did it gets you stuck in this pattern of, did I do something? Because I don't think I did something, but this person's acting like I did something. So what the hell's going on? And it's that loop over and over again, because this person, it's, withholding information. It's more subtle things, like I said, and it kind of drives you nuts little by little, because then this person will come back and try to find ways to justify it, or, normalize it, or whatever it might be. So if you're disconnected from yourself and your intuition, and you're disconnected from your discernment and your perception, that blocks a lot out. That blocks out relationships, relationships with yourself, relationships with other people. That could block out job opportunities. You know what I mean? Because if you can't see yourself clearly, then that's hard to really be confident in yourself and feel good about yourself and, build self-esteem and believe in yourself and shit like that. So, I mean, it really is destructive. And it's destructive for a long time until you get away from the person, really. Um, I think what people need to keep in mind is that nobody is responsible for another adult. I don't give a fuck what your circumstances are. I don't give a fuck what your culture or background tells you. You're not going to manipulate me into sacrificing my life in order to please and cater to yours, bitch. I do not think so. Sorry. Absolutely not. I don't think so. I think that's what the fuck I was trying to say. No, that's not about to happen. And that's what covert narcissistic people will do. They'll make you feel bad for them and make you feel like, unless this person is your child, and they're like needy upon you under the age of 18, no, I'm sorry, that's a no. I think some of these practices that we have that we deem as, having been normalized by society or certain cultures, I think that's not doing anybody a service. I think it's doing us a disservice to continue to normalize these things because we want to put labels on it like culture and this is what we do. And guess what? What we do and what we're doing is fucking stupid. I don't care what you want to fucking call it. It's dysfunctional and we should stop. Try that. So yeah, because it's just damaging the pattern, and like I said, it disconnects you from yourself, and when you're disconnected from self, you can't really go too far because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust anything or anyone else, right? If you don't believe in yourself, so that's what it does over time. It breaks you down over time. And it makes you question yourself and everyone else around you over time. And that's where you know that you're dealing with someone like that, because there's no way that you should be all of a sudden questioning people that you've been close with for years, wondering, oh my gosh, are they XYZ? That's how you know you're dealing with someone like that. They turn you against yourself. That's essentially why it's so insidious and sick, is that, sorry, I keep using that fucking word, but it's true. It's conniving. It's very subtle. And it's like they turn you against yourself. And once you get turned against yourself, good luck, because then it's a constant battle in your mind of, oh my gosh, am I wrong? Am I the bad person? Good luck building self-esteem. Good luck maintaining motivation. Good luck maintaining creative expression, creativity. These fucking monsters drain you of everything that you are, because they make you question how you should be or how they think you should be or whatever. So really does a lot of damage to the self-concept. And so I think it's important to recognize when you're being manipulated by someone like this. That's why I wanted to talk about this, because I think this is much more concerning than, somebody who just kind of proves themselves to be shitty or not a great person. Overtly, rather. But like I said, that's the danger in it, is that once you're disconnected from yourself, it's very hard to go anywhere from there. Once you question yourself, you question everything. And that's their objective. That's their objective. So, and once you go from there, it's like there's a lot of confusion, and then it makes it hard to discern if you can't even discern who you are, or you can't even trust your own decision making or judgment. from there it's all downhill. That's why it's like you really have to, when you're talking about a covert narcissistic person or somebody with those kinds of traits to the on a more extreme, like the more high end of the spectrum, you can't keep dealing with people like that. It destroys you over time. It will kill you with the stress over time. I mean, I have clients with autoimmune diseases that they didn't have 20 years ago because they've continued to stay around covertly abusive individuals. So you definitely want to get the fuck away from people like that as soon as possible. You want to have as much freedom, as much peace for your health as you can, because it will cause disease within the body, physical disease, and it will kill you over time. It will. The stress of dealing with it will kill you over time. Yeah. It's all about energy and whatever energy you're feeding into, you know. So yeah, it's like that's why it's so damaging, because I've always had this thought that, like, as long as I have myself, I'm good. But that's always been my worst fear, is being detached from reality entirely and not being able to see things clearly. Because that's when your true power is taken, And with these types of people, covertly narcissistics or covertly abusive people, they drain the life out of you slowly over time. And before you know it, years have gone by, to be honest with you. That's also another, like, telltale sign. It's like you're like, wait, what the fuck? Like, I've just been spending so much time, like, wasting my life away, like feeling obligated, people pleasing this person, helping this person. That's what covert narcissists do. They try to get you to keep people pleasing and helping them. And again, unless, like, that's your spouse or it's a child, sorry, not my problem. Or an elderly, like, very elderly sick parent, sorry, not my problem. Not my problem. You're an adult, I'm an adult. I don't call you when, my toilet needs to be fixed, bitch, so why are you calling me? That type of thing. It's like they're very needy, and then they, you know, um, play that up. But what people need to understand is that healthy adults don't do that. That's what children do. That's what adults who have not healed and done the inner work, that's what they do. Healthy, responsible adults, I'm not saying that you shouldn't rely on other people. I'm saying that covertly narcissistic people, they do it to a degree that's like, it's odd. It would make anybody look sideways. Like, why are you calling upon your so and so to help you with this when they're, like, trying to live their own life? Like, there's, yeah. So, I mean, don't let them fool you, because anybody that makes you feel that way or bad or obligated to them, no. And then these manipulative people nowadays are so advanced, because of the internet or because of whatever. They'll utilize, like, things that are hard to argue with to try to manipulate you to, like, do their bidding. You know, these narcissistic people can get really strategic with their approaches, and they can use a lot of things that are hard to, like I said, argue with. Things that kind of, what's that saying? Like, where you feel like your back's up against the wall. You know what I mean? They're the masters at that. But like I said, I think that's why it's most damaging, because you're disconnected from yourself. And when you're disconnected from yourself, then you're kind of rendered helpless. Oh, shit. I don't know if that was a butt dial. That was a client. Oh, she's struggling. Okay, let me say something. I wondered if, okay, hang on just a second. Well, I texted back. That was quick. But I'm already on my phone, so. Hopefully she's okay. Did you say yes? And I'm just saying hey because I haven't heard from you. Oh. What? Girl. I haven't heard from you. Yep. So, that's what you gotta do. You have to take your power back. But like I said, it is very subtle. It can be hard to recognize. And so, those are some of the signs that I just talked about. The other reason covert abuse is so damaging is like because it's so hard to spot. Because it's so hard to spot, sometimes the people who call the covert abuse out are not believed, and they're isolated a lot more because the covert abusive people can come off, they can really hide their cover, and they can hide their cover for a long time or forever because they can, put that mask back on. But what? Oh my gosh, I'm like so done. Girl. It really brings me a lot of peace to know that I can be someone that people can lean on or reach out to when they feel like they don't have someone, That was always kind of part of, I feel like, my mission or life purpose or wish for my mission and life purpose, because I didn't have that. So I want to be that for other people, and I'm very grateful I can be that for other people. I've kind of dedicated my life to being that for other people. I think the most devastating thing about dealing with somebody who is a covert abuser is the loss of time. You lose a lot of time with these individuals because you think that they have the ability to change. And I think that's what's so tough about it, is that they give off. They're much more deceitful, in my opinion, than overt narcissistic people or overt abusers, because they make you believe that they're better than what they are. You know what I mean? They're much more manipulative in that way. And I think they give you more of a false sense of hope, and that's why it's more devastating, because you really truly think like, oh my gosh, maybe this person can change, maybe they can heal, because they will give that aura off at some point, because they switch. Granted, all abusive people switch, but covert abusers have a way of, I don't know, being much more discreet about it. So it can disconnect you from yourself for lengthy periods of time. And it can lull you with a false sense of security and a false sense of hope. That's why it's so devastating. Because you really think you're getting somewhere until you realize you're not. And when you realize you're not, you also realize how much time you've wasted on a person who has pretended to be something they will never be, because they were never actually intending that to be that to begin with. They were intending to dupe you into thinking they were trying to be that to begin with, because that's all they're capable of. And you wake up one day and you realize that you have sacrificed and given up on your own dreams just to appease people that never intended on showing you anything different after all. It's a much harder truth to come to peace with, come to terms with, and look at dead in the eye and really accept, because of all the time wasted.